Hello and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast, where every week we bring you a story and you bring us little numbers on the computer that say you've listened. I'm, of course, Levi.
I'm Reed.
And I'm Seth.
And we are here to discuss our latest story. Well, guys, we've made it to the end again. The Trifold Clan is what I called this one, which was kind of relevant to the story, I think. That's one of the problems with coming up with the title at the beginning is you never know where the story's going to go. And so I come up with a title after the first episode, and then it's like, oh, wow, that wasn't sort of relevant to the rest of the story at all. But it's just kind of how it works.
Sometimes I'll go back in and I'm like, oh, I want to listen to this one. And I'll be looking for it because, like, okay, this is what it was about. And I'm looking at the names going, oh, okay, yeah, that was that one. What was this one again?
Yeah. I will do that as well. Well, guys, do you guys have any cool ideas? So here's a thing I realized kind of stopped my creative process relatively early on in this story, and I had to sort of re-find it somewhere else, which is that the whole pearls growing in the people's heads things and giving them magic powers, I've had that idea written down for a long time. So long, in fact, that I think that I had decided how it was going to be. And when our story started to go in a different direction, my brain was saying, no, wait, you're doing it wrong.
That's funny.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it was just kind of a little lesson for me to keep it to kiss, keep it simple, silly.
Yeah.
To not pre-plan story elements. And if I do have a cool idea, write it down, but be willing to immediately sacrifice it for another cooler idea. I think you can kind of hear it in one of the episodes, how I get kind of pissed off, I think, at Reed for an idea he had because it wasn't conforming to the idea that I had for it.
I was kind of wondering where that was coming from.
Yeah, send me an email if you knew where that was happening, and I'll let you know if you're correct at Waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com. But that was an interesting thing that I experienced. And I typically don't experience that to that degree very much, but this time it was like real heavy. Anything you guys thought was cool? Any cool inspirations from fiction books you've read or anything?
I mean, I've had in that same vein, not that it has to do with this story exactly, but this evening before we recorded, I found out that an idea that I had in my mind actually just kind of got ruined for me.
What?
Yeah.
How so?
So I had this crazy idea that I thought it would be, kind of out there for a hero idea.
Yeah.
That this guy learned kung fu from Jesus.
Okay.
And so it was like, okay, like, how's that going to fit in? So like, is it going to be like early, first century AD where this guy's like got super kung fu powers he learned from Jesus?
Okay.
Or is it going to be just like something weird where like, like he's a monk on a mountain and Jesus teaches, like, I don't know, in some kind of like vision or something. I don't know, whatever. But it was like this idea where then this kung fu master actually like learned his kung fu from Jesus. Sorry if that sounds really sacrilegious. Yeah. It was just, I don't know, like a wild idea I had. So the Babylon Bee shared a story from Not the Bee about this. I don't know if it's like a national movie, but it's a movie about, it's just this, as it says, this adopted Viking orphan who then finds himself in the Holy Land in the first century AD, who then apprentices under Jesus as a carpenter. Oh, and get this, the guy then is like in like the, not gladiators, but he does like MMA fighting.
Great.
And so I'm like, there goes my idea. Someone already did it and like, I don't know, put it in this like weird like collage of like, I don't know, I watched the commercial for it and I'll send it to you later. And it was just like, not quite my idea, but almost my idea. Like, that kind of ruins it. And I don't know, but
that's awesome and great.
But
I think you should still do that.
So maybe next time I get hero.
Yeah, don't do it like next story because then it'll be fresh in my brain,
I'll wait a while and I'll mull it over because seeing it in that way made it, I don't know, seem a little bit more sacrilegious than I had originally thought it to be. But anyways, I thought that was kind of funny that I've been mulling that idea for, I don't know, several months. And then I saw that and it like almost hit it to a T. Now, I don't think that Jesus is the one that taught him kung fu, or MMA or whatever it is that he does, but it came pretty close.
Yeah, I noticed something thinking of just speaking of inspirations, I noticed something with our stories in general about how we have a lot of stories where things start out in the country and then there's some big event happening in the city. And that's the culmination of the story. Do you guys notice that? How that happens? A lot of times there's something happening and then something big there's a festival or something happening in the big city. And so all the heroes and everyone sort of descend onto the city, and then then that's the end of the book.
Yeah, I can see that. There's several of our stories that have that element.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, one that, yeah.
I was
And
just,
that goes way back. There's some of the early ones that I remember had that concept as well. So it's not just like, oh yeah, this is something that's been picking up, but no, there's a couple that I have in mind from way back. But.
yeah, I was just thinking if my brain is like, is this okay? Or do I need to sort of expand my horizons when it comes to storytelling and find a different way to sort of end or have the climax for a story? You know, it's like, is it kind of cheap storytelling just to do it this way? Should I be coming up with different ways? I haven't written that many stories myself, so maybe I'm just like not the best storyteller, Anyways, it was just a thing I was thinking about. I wouldn't call it lazy storytelling, but I would call it kind of interesting, an interesting sort of coincidence or coincidence, I guess I would call it. But
I think what comes to mind as like a thought on that would be I think a lot of stories take place like that in general.
right.
And from I don't know if it would be philosophical standpoint, but like the city would be where stuff would happen. But I would say probably in essence, I mean, to anyone that's listening, I'm not trying to make fun of people that live in cities, but
Don't.
as I think it's John Denver said very famously, "Thank God I'm a country boy. I don't live in the city."
Yeah.
And so I would say it would be like, because there's a lot of people, it's a center of something for something to happen, but with possibly the lack of the heroic expertise to take care of whatever it is that happens, right? I think of a lot of different like kung fu things where it's like that master from the mountain that has to come down, or something happens and the guy has to come back to the city or the town from after learning something, after going, to the wilderness.
Right.
I guess, we talked with Jesus earlier. I mean, he was, kind of like if Jerusalem was the big city, right? He came from the Hicks, right? Coming from
that's
the nowhere
true.
of Galilee to the big city. I think it's a natural story type, right?
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
For the problem going on in the city or the big center or something that's happening is normally got people that are coming from outside to it, either for an event or for something that then have some grander mastery over something that allows them to solve the problem that seems to be beyond what, the people in their high-paced city life might be able to comprehend.
Typically, the villains go to the city because they're looking for control of people, and people amass in cities, and so it's a obvious place for a villain to try and get control of because there are a lot more people there. So that makes sense.
So I'd put it that way. So not feeling too bad about it, because I think it's a grander story type in a lot of things than just something that we're doing.
Right. No, for sure. For sure.
So my question to you, because I wasn't in the third recording, how did you guys feel it wrapped up? Did it wrap up pretty good? Do you like how
Yeah, so I had sad ending.
That's sad.
Yeah, it was kind of sad, but I didn't, it's a sad ending, but I don't believe that endings can be sad. So the sad ending was that, so basically how it wrapped up, I don't know, you haven't listened to it, I guess?
I haven't. I'll go back and listen to it. I guess I wasn't aware that you had posted it out yet, but I'll probably listen to it tonight or tomorrow. But.
Yeah. So basically what happened is that the bad guy was trying his thought process to become a god, to become like the gods, the ones that gave the clans their or gave the people their task, was to basically get a little bit of the power of all of the all three types, right? So he was a Perlian, and he got, this is going to sound weird, I'd say of all the episodes we've made that could be rated more mature, this story might be among them. But he basically got a full blood transfusion from a prophecy person giving him the prophecy power, because one of his Perlian powers was that anything he ingests or takes into himself, he gains some of their ability. And so he was able to sort of take and meld the two powers together and basically become unstoppable, because he could sense what people were doing and then also use his Perlian powers to kind of like stop them. And he like basically became unstoppable, and he like calls down the being or whatever thing it was that put them on this path thousands of years ago, and it kind of comes down and then just like destroys him with like a single touch, and then sees what all is happening, and then like snaps its fingers, and fire and brimstone start raining down, and all of society is destroyed. It says something like, oh, this wasn't the way things were supposed to, or something like that. I don't remember exactly how it worked, but it was kind of a sad ending.
You bozos have screwed this up. This was not the way it was supposed to go.
This is not what I was asking for. You're going to have to start over, basically.
It's a flood,
Yeah.
But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord,
Right. So then the ending scene is our quartet in the new world that was discovered, sort of trying to start things over again. I think is that how it worked, Reed?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. So I feel like it turned out okay. Reed had a unique restaurant, which was kind of interesting. It was like a who's who place. That I don't remember exactly what it was. It was called the Rustic. It was kind of like a place people the rich would go to, and it was like full of different types of foods and spices that people...
Yeah, kind of like seeking out new and unique and tasty fare from the territories.
Right, but it had a specific effect on the bad guy, but I don't remember what it was.
It was sort of like here he was working toward this goal of kind of centralizing control, and there was a lot happening with the expansion into the new world, and he realized he kind of forced his hand. He had to make his move kind of before he was ready.
That's right. It kind of shocked him to be like, wait, the world is changing really rapidly. I need to like do something. That's right. So it's kind of one of his big mistakes, is that it made him move too hastily. So that's kind of how it ended, which I thought was pretty good. One of the things I always think about in these is that we never get too far in depth into like specific characters' thought processes. We only get far enough in to justify the next thing.
Right.
Where I think about things like the Wheel of Time, right? There's so many characters, but Robert Jordan and then Brandon Sanderson really give the space for them to kind of explore their personality in the world. Certain characters, they get that space. And so while I really like this format, I also realize I'm kind of doing a disservice, because we really kind of are creating an idea and then being like, all right, next idea. And I have heard from several people that it's kind of crazy, like how many new ideas we go through, because it's just like, well, what about that? Wait, I wanted to hear the end of that story. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think maybe that's where we might have to find a balance. I think before we did this format, at least in my opinion, has a better possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, it's spun out into 3 sections. Because I think before we'd try to cram, and unless we got sequel, which we wouldn't know until the end of recording, we would be trying to cram all too much of everything, and so you could get hung up on the nuances of one character without getting to one of the other ideas.
Right. No, for sure.
And so I think at least in this format gives a little bit more time to expand on a little bit of more things than a simple hang up on one thing or the other and then running an hour and then going like, okay, now wrap it up real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. It allows us to have more story elements, instead of it. We have these like multiple story elements, so we can create more facets to it. I don't know how we would accomplish the thing that I don't know how we would accomplish the thing that I am talking about. I don't know unless
So I think to
unless we
accomplish
dedicated
that,
like a whole month to a story, or but in that case, like, are we really being this kind of improv thing, or are we just being like story writers? Wait, it gets better. The guys who write one story. You know what I mean?
Mhm. I think the answer to that would be the people you're hearing from, seem like wonderful people. I like them already.
Yeah. All the hundreds of people.
I just want to say how great they are, and I appreciate that they're, giving input. And
yeah, absolutely.
is there any other like really nice things I can say about them?
Well, I don't know if there was.
No, if they'd want to be so kind as to maybe, if we made a GoFundMe, that they could pay us to take time off of work.
Yeah.
And then the stories they wanted to hear more about, write and tell us which ones those are. And then we could dedicate time to expanding on certain stories that people want to hear about. Because I think with what we're doing, it gets a basic idea out, somewhat of a beginning, middle, end, some plot intrigue, and some neat ideas. And that wraps it up. Because that's really what we're doing, is making a plot line. And so I think that if there's one of these plot lines that someone would love to hear more about, and they want to fund us, maybe writing
hey, we're not
a series of short novels.
Hey. I would just, Seth speaking in sarcasm here, but I would really just love to hear from people. No one has to pay us anything, not yet. But I would just really love to hear from people, their ideas, what they think we're doing good, what they'd like to hear more from us, But
I definitely think that this is not in sarcasm. But if there's any of the particular stories that really strike out to people, and they say, hey, we want to know more about this, like, tell us more in this vein of thing, definitely let us know.
Absolutely.
Then it kind of lets us know which, where we're on the right vein, and, maybe we'll expand on one of those stories that
and where we're totally missing the mark.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this discussion hour. It's been a whole hour so far. I'm going to edit it down to a cool 25 minutes. You guys aren't going to hear any of the fun arguments Reed and I had. But thank you for joining us this week for this discussion as we talk about kind of our process, kind of our thought process, and a little bit kind of in the background of like what we think about, and how we sort of go about the ideas and the struggles that we have too. I think that kind of humanizes me a little bit, talking about the fact that I get irritated at people when they don't do things the way I want. If you would like to hear from us, send us a text message. I try to get on Twitter, but send us a email at waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com if you have any cool ideas, if you have any fun critiques. If you want to hear from us on Twitter, @getsbettercast is our handle. And until next time,
wait, it gets better.